Is this mic turned on? Okay, very good. I had it muted. The Most High set up his various feast days and times and all of the, the things that they did for them when the feast came along. There was a certain offering that you bring, and you did the same thing every year. So I don't feel bad when we just read the same scripture every year. You know where we going. Leviticus 23, 15 through 22.
All right. Leviticus 23, verse 15. And from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of your wave offering, you shall count for yourselves 7 complete Sabbaths. Until the morrow, after the 7th Sabbath, you shall count 50 days. Then you shall bring a new grain offering to Yahweh. Bring from your dwellings for a wave offering 2 loaves of bread and 2 tenths of ephah, fine flour. They are baked with leaven, first fruits to Yahweh. And besides the bread, you shall bring 7 lambs, a year old, perfect ones, and 1 year young bull, and 2 rams. They are an ascending offering to Yahweh, a grain offering, and their drink offerings, an offering made by fire for a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. And you shall offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, and 2 male lambs, a year old, as a slaughtering of peace offerings. And the priest shall wave them besides the bread of the first fruits, and wave offering before Yahweh, besides the 2 lambs. They are set apart to Yahweh for the priests. And on the same day, you shall proclaim the set apart gathering for yourselves. You do no servile work on it, a law forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. And when you reap the harvest of your land, do not completely reap the corners of the field when you reap. And do not gather any gleaning from your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am Yahweh, your Elohim.
All right, very good. So today is, we didn't say what it was. Today is 50 days. 50 days. 7 complete weeks, 7 complete Sabbaths, plus a day, 50. And so we made it all the way. And so, we think about these feast days, they teach us something. There's things for us to do, during these feast days. And this particular, one of the things that we do here is we pay attention to the days. It's easy for us now with the way that, we have the calendars and, we pretty much keep track of things. But you got to think about things in the way that they were originally brought forth. I mean, I don't know what the calendar system was, if they had kind of like, like when the Most High gave this command for them to count these 7 weeks and for them to, count these days, I just feel like it was harder to keep track because me with the calendar, like with my technology, I'd actually have to think about, what day are we? Which day is it? What? So you have to think about it. There's a process that is involved. There's dedication that's involved in the count, and again, I'm thinking about it from when the command was given, right? And so there's a discipline. There's a discipline that is involved in keeping track of which day it is, counting up the days. right? And so when we think about the Shavuot and this time, I wanted to kind of just talk a little bit about some things that I think that pictures that we can see inside of Shavuot. Now, Shavuot is directly connected to Feast of Unleavened Bread. This is when we start to count, inside of Feast of Unleavened Bread. And, when we look at Feast of Unleavened Bread in terms of where it fits in the salvation picture, because when you look at the feast days, if we go from the beginning to the end, it gives us a picture of our complete salvation. Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, is really our initial, what would be equivalent to one's initial justification, redemption, your initial kind of crossing over into another status, right? From going from outside to inside. At the time, at the original Passover, Israel, although they were the Most High's chosen people, until this transfer of ownership took place, they really was Pharaoh's people. And so there had to be kind of this redemption thing that happened, and that's what happens with the Passover. And then, so inside of that, we go from the children of Israel leaving out of Egypt, going up to the mountain. And when they get to the mountain is where they make this agreement, where they basically sign this covenant. When the Most High puts forth his, side of the deal, and the people, before they heard what the deal was, they said, yes, we'll do it. And so with Shavuot, you have this, you have this picture of this signing of the covenant, this sealing of the covenant. But also you have the point in between from leaving Egypt to the mountain, to meet with the Most High at the mountain, which in and of itself, there was discipline involved in that. They're out there in this wilderness. They had the manna situation happen. They had these various adversities and murmurings and things that was going on. There was a pressing through that was necessary. Which, again, when you think about just the idea of just counting these days, is something, because, just like when we think about Passover, Passover, is it just about just eating matzah? Like, is that what we do it for? Like, is that it means something, right? Again, when we think about Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, as our initial justification, Israel had to really learn how to be the people of the Most High, which was a process. You think about the idea of removing this leaven from your life, the sin from your life, but at this point, what is sin? What is it? You don't even know. What is it that the Most High even likes? You don't even know. And so it's interesting when we look at these, this time, this process as it goes, from Passover up to Feast of Unleavened Bread. When we looked at these verses over here, and it talks about the time, the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you start off the count with barley. You start off the count with barley, and then if you do your research on barley, they talk about barley as being like animal food or poor people's food, but I think one of the reasons why that is because of it's easy to grow. The ground doesn't have to be like rich soil for barley. It could be just like regular soil. It don't need that much cultivation. Barley doesn't. It grows pretty easily.
It's like a weed.
I mean, maybe. Yeah. So yeah, weed can just. I don't mean to say weed. A weed can grow. A weed can grow, very easily. And so barley is the same thing. And so when you think about this idea of barley, and the rabbis talk about it being kind of this picture of the refining of your animal soul, of your nefesh. I remember whenever I was going up to the penitentiary, and got to talking about the word nefesh, and part of the definition really is animal. And the guys, a lot of the guys up there got really offended, because they wanted to be like a man, not like an animal. But that word nefesh, when the Most High breathed His life into that dirt and you became a living soul, nefesh, that word literally it means animal. And so when we think about this process that you're going through, you're refining that animal soul. You're refining that animal soul. But that's only just talking about Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread. But Shavuot is a wheat harvest, which the ground, it takes a little more cultivation in that ground. You need better soil, and that's why they say wheat maybe is like a more, for these, wheat now is like, it's, you don't think about it, but in the ancient times, it was kind of, everybody didn't eat wheat. You saved that for the good situations and things. And so, but the ground has to be more refined for that. And so Shavuot being this wheat harvest, when, as opposed to the barley harvest, when it's dealing with this raw offering, this wheat harvest that is brought, which takes more cultivation, it takes better soil for the wheat, and the offering is transformed. It's not a raw ingredient. It's processed. Right? And so you're taking this raw ingredients, and it's so nice that ladies, you guys got together last night and you experienced the refining of this wheat. You took the wheat and all the ingredients, your salt and your sugar and I don't know what was it. Was there eggs in there? I don't know. You mixed all of the ingredients together, and you came out with a completely different situation. That thing was transformed from the time that you mixed it up and put it in the oven and you applied heat to it. So it was a refined, a transformed product offering that you brought to, that was supposed to be brought to the Most High. And so when I think about this idea of Shavuot and this idea of this transformation that's, that happens, that's kind of intrinsic to what Shavuot is, the wheat harvest, but you're not bringing wheat, you're bringing a refined, transformed offering. It made me think about interesting scripture over here. I want to go over to. I'm going to go over to. I want to go to John. First, let's go to Romans. Let's go to Romans 12 first. Sorry. Romans 12. Popular scripture. Romans 12, 1 and 2.
Romans 12, verse 1. I call upon you, therefore, brothers, through the compassion of Elohim, to present your bodies a living offering, set apart, well-pleasing to Elohim, your reasonable worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove that is that good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of Elohim.
Okay, very good. This is it said to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformed by the renewing of your mind. So when we think about this idea of, in Romans, it's talking about, you actually being this living sacrifice, this thing that's offered up to the Most High, a living sacrifice. And in order to do this, you have to have this transformed, you have to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so when we think about Shavuot, because Shavuot, the original Shavuot was about the giving of the commandments. The fulfillment of Shavuot is about the pouring out of the Spirit. And so we think about the Spirit and the Spirit that's poured out that causes us to keep the commandments of the Most High. But our spirit is in our mind. Your spirit isn't your mind. I don't know if you know that. Sometimes it feels like it's your mind. Maybe sometimes your mind feels like it's your spirit, but your spirit isn't your mind. There's two different things going on here. But when we look over here in chapter 12, it talked about being transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, I think that when it's talking about this idea of renewing your mind, we could think about that in terms of your mind being spiritualized or saturated with spiritualness, right? There's a process, this renovation, renewing situation that has to happen inside of your mind. But again, in the thinking about Shavuot, we have the picture, right? You're taking this raw ingredient, right? There's a lot to even get to get the wheat to be like flour. Like before you can even think about making bread, you got to do so there's a process that's involved. We think about the idea of, we come to the knowledge of Yeshua HaMashiach. We go and we get dunked in some water somewhere. And, the Spirit of the Most High comes and lives and dwells in your heart. And then you're good. Right? That's it. That's all it gotta be. Now I'm not talking about you going and you saying these 5 lines. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying like you have an authentic experience with the Most High. He literally comes and dwells in your heart. And then you're good. Right?
Throw me in the oven.
Huh?
Throw it in the oven.
You got to get thrown in the oven. But there's steps before the oven, though, right? You gotta even become flour. You gotta become the thing that is ready to be used by the baker, right? The grand baker. But it's a process. It's a process like what we see over here with Shavuot of just, it's maybe it's a mundane process. I don't know. It's day one. Oh, it's day one. Oh, it's day two. Oh, it's week 3. But it's a process of doing these things over and over again. It's a process. And so when we think about this idea now of, this renewed mind, your spirit's not your mind. Paul talks about if you have a mind of the spirit or if you have a carnal mind. So you can have a mind that's a carnal mind. Right? And so your mind is kind of, you think about your mind, I guess it's, this is where reason sits. In the Torah, it's interesting when it talks about your heart. Sometimes it's talking about your mind. The things that you desire, the things that that kind of motivates your situation. But again, Paul, when he talks about this fight that happens between your carnal mind and the mind of the spirit, it's like you have this situation where your flesh, where your carnality, your nephesh, your appetites, your physical desires want things. They want things. Right? But it's necessary for your mind to be renewed, to be transformed. And that comes by the Spirit, by the Ruach HaKodesh. But again, it's a process. It's a process that happens. Now let's go over here let's go to John. Let's go to John. It's a process that takes discipline. Right? It takes discipline. Discipline, when you think about discipline, cultivation is part of discipline. Right? And so again, we talk about this idea of wheat, we got to grow the wheat first. Before you can even use it, got to be grown. And unlike barley, it got to be like some good soil. So you got to get out there. I went out to my raised beds the other day, and the ants took over my raised bed. Did I tell you that? They're all over the place. So I had to go out there and I took some boiling water because this is where I'm going to grow my fruit and vegetables. So I can't put how am I going to kill the ants? So I got some boiling water, and because I remember from when we went to feast, I poured the water on the anthill, and the next day they just built the anthill back up again. So ChatGPT told me if I took some boiling water and I could just pour the boiling water on them, it would kill them. I don't think it worked. They're still there. But the point is that there's things that you got to do in order to get your ground ready. And it takes work. I can't just say, I just want to plant something here, just put the thing in the dirt. Because the ants, they get in there and they mess your root system up. And then, your things ain't growing right. So it takes discipline for this cultivation. And so let's go to John. Let's look at John 4. John 4, read John 4:23 and 24.
John 4:23. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and truth, but the Father also does seek such to worship him. Elohim is spirit, and those who worship him need to worship in spirit and truth.
Okay, very good. So we have this combination, it seems, that's necessary for us to be able to, this word worship, and this Greek word worship here means to It means to bend down low, to prostrate oneself in reverence. It's a physical act, but it's also kind of a state of being, right? It's kind of how you are in relation to the Most High, right? In a constant state of reverence toward Him. That word means to kiss, like a dog licking his master's hand. To prostrate oneself. But again, it's not the idea of you like laying down on the ground, because you got to get up and you got to do things. But it's an attitude that you have in relation to the Most High. But he said, those that worship me, those that have this relationship with me that is reverent, and which includes extreme adoration towards the Most High, this relationship must be in spirit and in truth. And so when we think about spirit, it's easy for us to think about, well, I guess it can be easiest for us to think about what is spirit. The Most High tells us here, the Most High is spirit. The Ruach HaKodesh is this spirit, this inner part that's within you that the Most High uses to give you this divine unctioning and pulling and leading and guiding in the direction that He will have you to be. But when you think about truth, Yeshua said He's the truth. But when I think about Yeshua being the truth, I feel like it's kind of like spiritualizing truth. To me. I don't know, maybe I'm not thinking about it correctly. But to me, when I think about Yeshua as being truth, I can't think about it as being like spirit, because these are two things that the Most High is dealing with here, that He's saying, those that worship me, at hours coming that now is when true worshipers need to not only worship me in spirit, but also worship me in truth. And so, what is truth then? What is truth? What do somebody think they would say is truth?
I thought you were about to say something. I was like, okay.
Somebody got to know what truth is. Because guess what? If you don't know what truth is, you can't. How could you be a true worshiper if you don't know what truth is? So somebody could give me like a 5-word answer to what truth.
I'll say Psalms 119 declares that truth is the law.
Oh, interesting.
Proverbs also declares that. Matter of fact, I'm going to stick with that.
Okay, that's
My mind
good.
went blank.
That's good. That's good. That's good. And so the Most High's words are true. The Most High's words are true. Okay, so now if we think about Yeshua, He's the truth. John also says that Yeshua is the Word. He's the manifestation of the mind of the Most High. The things that He did exemplified the law.
Correct.
He was the Torah walking around. The personification of the Torah is Yeshua. Okay, and so the law then, the character of the Most High, humanized is the truth. And so, if you want to worship, true worshipers worship Yahweh in spirit and truth. And it's both of the things. You know, the other thing I was thinking about, now, you can live unto the Most High in the truth without the Spirit. You know, because people have done it. You know, there was a reason why the Spirit had to come, because the people needed to be invigorated with His presence to be able to walk out His character the way that He wanted. But can you serve the Most High with only just the Spirit though, without the truth?
That's like a Christian church.
The Spirit is supposed to lead you to all things, so it's supposed to lead you to the truth.
Oh, you saying the Spirit leads you to the truth?
If you're saying you're just walking in the Spirit is supposed to lead you to the truth.
I'm trying to figure out if you. Okay, so if it's leading you to the truth, you saying eventually the Spirit gonna get you to the truth?
If it's the Spirit. If
If
we're
it's
talking about the same Spirit, what Spirit are we talking about?
I'm just saying it seems. The thing that I was thinking about, it seems like there can be more only truth than I feel like the Spirit. This is just me talking here. I'm just saying. It just seems like if you, as you're saying, if you really have the Spirit, if the Spirit of the Most High is living on the inside of you, it's supposed to lead you into all truth. So if it's not doing that, either you're not listening or the Spirit isn't there.
So yeah, it's not the right Spirit.
Or you can resist the Spirit.
What
Yeah, you're not listening. Yeah,
Yeah.
resisting, not
Yeah,
listening, and putting that in the same category.
Disobedient.
But if you have the Spirit and you're not listening to the Spirit or you're resisting the Spirit, Paul said that those that are led by the Spirit are called the sons of Elohim. So for you just only to have the Spirit, but you're not being led by the Spirit, you're not listening to the Spirit, you're resisting the Spirit, it's not doing the thing that it's supposed to do on the inside of you. Because you can have the Spirit inside of you and be a lust-filled demon. I had to say it, right? But you could, right? And what's stopping you from doing it?
Right.
Your carnal mind, your appetites, your nefesh. It's not an automatic thing. It's not a thing where you just, it's just, but there's cultivation necessary.
Mm-hmm.
There's a process that is, that must take place. I was talking to somebody about, the sower. I was talking about somebody about the parable of the sower. And the picture for those in ministry, when you have people who belong to a group together, it's different from like an evangelist being out in the street. An evangelist out in the street is the true picture of the sower that's from the parable. But in the congregational setting, it's not really apples to apples because there's cultivation involved.
Yeah.
Right? We can work to get the soil right. Where an evangelist out in the street is just throwing seed out. Whoever You know what I mean? Just anywhere, and it'll land where it lands. But in a congregational setting, in a community setting, you know, we got the hose out and the rakes and the spade shovels and the little pickaxe things. Right? There's work involved, there's cultivation involved. And so again, when I think about Shavuot, like, you know, it's not about counting days. It's about getting from that place of, you know, the refinement of your animal soul to the place of the transformation of your spiritual mind. Okay, so how do we do that then? How do we do that? Well, one thing I was thinking about, let's go over to Ezekiel. Ezekiel 38 and read verse 23.
Ezekiel 38 and 23. And I shall exalt myself and set myself apart, and I shall be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am Yahweh.
When you think about the idea of the Most High, of Yahweh magnifying himself, you know, come magnify Yahweh with me, right? This idea of magnifying the Most High, Yahweh magnifying himself. I have a magnifying glass. I'm making a thing that is maybe small. I'm making it big. Perception, right? I'm not able to see this thing that's over there, and I want that thing to be closer to me so that I can see it better and understand what's going on with the thing. This idea of magnifying Yahweh. You know, when we think about spirit and truth, when we think about magnifying Yahweh, we think about the idea of the law of Yahweh being the character of the Most High. You know, we have to be able to understand what the Most High's character is. We have to be able to understand what it is that the Most High likes and what he doesn't like. We have to know that. Otherwise, we're going to be walking around and our carnal mind's going to be talking to us, but we're going to think it's our spiritual mind because we don't know the difference. But when we've magnified Yahweh in our hearts and in our minds by making, you know, these concerted efforts, these intentional efforts to draw closer to the Most High by understanding who he is, his character through his law, statutes, and commands, understanding, you know, and it's not about by doing things either. I just want to say that. Because there's a lot of people out here doing a whole bunch of things and don't know anything about the Most High. I'm just going to say it. Nothing. They don't know anything about it. Because it's not about doing things, but I'm talking about understanding his character behind the things. You know, when we think about Yeshua, whenever Yeshua talked about, you know, to his disciples, and it talks about in Luke where he went through the law and the Psalms, and he showed his disciples himself in the law and in the prophets. When we know, if we go back to the law and the prophets, it don't say Yeshua, I mean, unless it's talking about the successor of Moses. but not the God that we serve. They don't talk about him necessarily, like literally. But when we're able to think about things from, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, thinking about things from a spiritual perspective, when we see the spirit of the law, this is what we mean when we talk about this idea of understanding the character of the Most High. We're able to look at these laws and understand kind of the spirit behind the laws, because there's so many of these things that we can't even do in these days and times. But what is it that is the spirit behind this thing? These are the things that we have to look into. This will be part of that discipline. This will be part of that cultivation. This is part of that renewing of our mind, taking us from this raw, unrefined product to this transformed, refined person, a new creature, a new thing. And so again, when we think about this idea of what we do with this bread, it helps us to understand that just going from a thing. It's interesting that this offering that's given to the Most High, this acceptable offering that's acceptable to the Most High, it got yeast in it. It got yeast in it, right? But it's still acceptable to the Most High. If you went through the thing that he wanted for you to do to get to this finished product, and he said to wave this thing before him. It's an acceptable sacrifice with yeast in it.
But it's some yeast that he called for, though.
I mean,
it's something you made up. You brought to us.
It's yeast. It's existing there. The yeast exists in the bread.
Right.
It exists there. And so when we think about, us in our lives, and I'm not sitting up here talking about, he's accepting us, in our sin. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that we're in this body that has this propensity for sin, but he's still going to accept us because he provides a way that makes us be acceptable through his son Yeshua. The same way we think about how he made this wave offering acceptable. These 2 loaves of wheat bread with leaven in it, with yeast in it. All right, so I want to just kind of finish up here and just, here's my last little part over here. When we think about this idea of, again, Shavuot, and the idea of it helping us to think about this concept of, not just counting to 50, but discipline, and thinking about, because when we think about the first Shavuot, when you think about your initial justification, when you first came to the Most High, you didn't know anything but what Yeshua did for you, and you accepted his sacrifice, and you received his spirit. again, this is something that we have to really go through every day of our life. We're always on this path of refinement. I mean, unless you're walking around here perfect. I don't know nobody that's walking around here perfect. I don't know too many people anyway. I don't know any people. But it's a continual process. It's not something that we do just for 50 days after Shavuot, after Feast of Unleavened Bread. It's not something that we stop thinking about tomorrow because Shavuot's over and now we don't got nothing to do until we get to trumpets. Right? It's a continual process that we're just reminded of just right now. But this is what our life's work is. This is how we be light. Is by keeping on being light. And don't allow for that thing to become dim. Right? It's a process. What's up with that little cloud that gets on your headlights? Where it covers up your headlights? You ever notice that? And then they had that little commercial where you got that little thing that you buy that like gets the little cloudy stuff off of your headlights.
Yeah, it's like the heat from the headlight and whatever kind of particles.
Just a regular wear and tear. So you need some regular wear and tear to maintain your light. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like it don't just shine bright just forever and just it don't need no maintenance. Mm-hmm. Right? There's things that you got to do to keep that thing shiny. Mm-hmm. Now my wedding ring got white gold on it. It's real illustrious. When it's clean, now it just look regular. I ain't really did my maintenance on it. I hope my spiritual life ain't like my wedding ring. Right? So I just want to leave this with you all. This time, these times are reminders for us. They're reminders for us to keep us going. We got a big gap after Sukkot. But in these 7 months, we keep getting these boosts as we go to remind us of the way that we're supposed to be living our lives. Yep. And we're supposed to be on this track of evolving and growing. Because when you stop growing, you dead. Go ahead.
Scripture read in Romans 12, it said be conformed and be transformed. When you look at that, I look at that verb be as a verb, an action. And so it doesn't say do transformation, it says be transformed. So in that text, I would say that we will be the bread and not the baker, being transformed. And this is something that we can't do on our own, or nothing that we can do, and anything that we can do or make it be happening. It's like saying to someone to be tall. There's nothing that you can do to be tall. Like you can think it all day, you can will it all day, but there's nothing you can do to be tall. And so when he says be transformed, literally he's alluding to the submission to the Most High to allow him to do the work in you, through you, around.
Yes. See, you have to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Mm-hmm. By allowing, people, there's a lot of people who know the law, the Torah, the words of the Most High. But without the Spirit inside of them to be able to draw from these things and to kind of cause you to behave in a particular way, it don't mean anything.
Right.
And so this idea of this renewing of your mind, you know, it is an active process that you must participate in. Yeshua said that when he was going to send this spirit back, he was talking to his disciples, and the spirit, he said, is going to bring all these things back to your remembrance that I taught you. So they had a vault of knowledge inside of them. And when that spirit came, it was going to go in there and get this thing out over there and then get this thing out of the vault of your mind and use it. But I'm saying if there ain't nothing in the vault, what's it going to bring back to your remembrance? It's not bringing nothing back to your remembrance. So I'm saying it got to be something in there for the Most High to cause you to do. It got to be spirit and truth. It ain't just truth. It ain't just about, you know, knowledge. And, you know, somebody could sit down and read a book your whole life. You know what I mean? But unless you got the Ruach HaKodesh on the inside of you, you just got a whole lot of information.
Yep.
Right? It got to be about spirit and truth. Okay, does anybody else have any thoughts, questions? Yeah, go ahead.
When you was talking about the feast days and Passover, Shavuot, and you was talking about the pictures, it brought to thought in my mind the Passover being, I would say, going into when Messiah does come, and the second death passes over those who, I think you see a picture of it in Ezekiel, when he says, go through the town and write upon those who are mourning in the street, and those who are not, he says, slay them. So we see a picture of another Passover taking place. And then when we get to Shavuot, we're at the mountain again, and that's where the covenant was given. And what came to mind for me was when he goes and writes the covenant within our heart. And that's what I was seeing, and I just wanted you to kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, I would say that my idea is that, and it's slightly different from yours. When I think about the spring feast, Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Shavuot, you know, it gets you to your, you know, your transformed, your redeemed, saved self. To trumpets, now you have this thing that you have to declare. You've been changed. Now I need to declare this thing so that other people can be changed.
Yeah.
You declare with trumpets the fact that the judge is coming.
Yeah.
And so with trumpets, the judge is coming.
Right.
And then with atonement, wrath
Yeah.
is coming. And so to me, I think it's a little bit different than the other part. I mean, you could think about it like that. I don't think about it that way. To me, I feel like that part's done.
What, Passover?
Passover's done. With you, it's done.
Well,
It's with, and so I'm just saying that, and so it's once you get to that other side now there's a declaration of wrath is coming, atonement is coming. Atonement, the fulfillment of atonement, is when all sin is done, and so wrath is going to happen if you're not right. But that's way back over there in Passover, right? And so we live our life really in as believers in trumpets, I would say.
Yeah. No, it makes
Because we're proclaiming the gospel to the world. We're proclaiming judgment. Judgment's coming. Yeshua, he's coming. Hopefully you on the right side when he come back, right? And so, I mean, it's an interesting thought of it.
I would elaborate more on that thought. I think the reason why I look at it kind of that way, one, we see in Egypt, we see that, firstborn and all that, they die. And those who have their houses marked with the blood of the Lamb are passed over.
Yeah.
And so when we go into that place of judgment, we also see the same picture happening. Those who are not covered by the blood, because even the high priest prophesied. He said, "Let the blood of this man be over all our children." And so, what I'm saying is, you see the same format repeating in the pattern. And so that's why I think.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's
Because it's necessary for everyone to have their Passover moment. It's a necessity thing. I mean, everyone has to have their Passover moment.
I wanted, my bad, I don't mean to talk about it. But even when you was talking about, bro, I be so interested. But even when you was talking about the bread, what came to my mind was about the motivating force, because we're talking about two different types of bread. One has a yeast that rises up and it's an abomination to the Father. Then one is an acceptable offering. And when we talk about the heart of it all, it speaks to, when we talk about spirit, it speaks to a person's motivation for doing so. You can do things in a bad spirit, and you can do things in a right spirit. Hopefully I'm understanding what you're saying. That's why.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying when I mentioned that little bread.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have any?
I just wanted to touch on, John 4, about the true worship in the spirit and truth. And, I always saw it coming from, coming out of the Christian church, everything is spiritualized, right? Everything is spiritualized. But I've seen the spirit move, what I'm saying? I've seen people healed, seen demons cast out, the spirit moves, right? There seems to be very little truth that they move in. And then when I came over to the other side during the awakening, it was like truth. Yeah, this be the people, this and that, it was all about truth. Very little spirit. I see very little, spiritual things happening, casting out of demons, healings, and this kind. It's more of the, the intellectual side, which is the truth side. And so, we can bring those sides together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If those two can just meet, I believe we would see like a movement like no other.
Yeah.
And I believe we're on that path.
All right. Okay, so very good. If nobody else has any more thoughts, I guess we'll go ahead and conclude for now. I guess we're going to move on to the eating portion of the situation. All right. Okay. All right. Very good.
All right, so now.
Alright, I was gonna make an announcement for everyone here.
Oh, did everybody know where the restrooms are in this place?